I can't walk any longer. Please let me stay just one night, pleaded the native girl. The sun was beginning to sink behind the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air was crisp and smelled of wet earth, leaves, and the faint scent of flowers that still clung to the forest. James, a traveler who had been walking for hours along a narrow, winding path, wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked around. The forest had grown quieter as the evening approached, and an unusual stillness settled among the trees. Birds no longer sang, and even the wind seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. James felt a mixture of relief and unease. Relief because he had almost reached a small clearing where he could make camp for the night. Unease because something in the silence didn't feel right. He had been traveling for days, moving from village to village, hoping to document the lives of the people living deep in these remote regions. As an anthropologist, James was fascinated by cultures untouched by modern technology, people who lived in harmony with nature, relying on knowledge passed down through generations. But this journey was proving harder than he had imagined. The paths were treacherous, sometimes muddy and slippery, sometimes blocked by fallen trees. Food was scarce and the nights were colder than he had anticipated. Yet, despite the hardships, he felt alive, connected to the world in a way that life in the city had never allowed. James was so focused on his own thoughts that he almost didn't notice the faint sound at first. A soft, trembling voice echoed through the trees, breaking the silence. He froze, listening carefully. The sound came again, a desperate plea carried on the wind. "Please, I can't walk any longer, just one night." He strained his eyes, canning the forest floor. There, through the thick undergrowth, he saw a small figure struggling to move. The girl seemed to be no older than 12 or 13. Her clothes were simple and torn in places, covered in dirt and dust. Her hair hung in tangled strands around her face, which was streaked with sweat and tears. She leaned heavily on a stick she had fashioned as a cane, moving with difficulty as though every step caused her pain. James's heart went out to her immediately. He knew he couldn't just walk past, but at the same time he hesitated. He had been trained to be cautious when meeting strangers in remote areas. Stories of danger and deceit often crossed his mind. Yet, something about the girl's voice, the raw honesty and fear in it, told him she was not a threat. She was just a child in trouble, in desperate need of help. "Hey," he called softly, careful not to scare her. "It's okay. You can come closer. You don't have to walk anymore tonight." The girl froze at first, uncertainty flashing in her eyes. Then, after a long moment, she stepped toward him slowly, dragging her stick behind her. Each movement seemed to take enormous effort. Her bare feet were cut and scratched by the rough forest floor. She stumbled once or twice, and James instinctively stepped forward to steady her. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know where else to go. I just can't keep walking, please," her eyes pleaded, wide and shining, and James could see the exhaustion etched into every line of her young face. "You don't need to explain anything," James said gently. "Come with me. I have a small place to stay for the night. You'll be safe there." Her face relaxed slightly, a faint hope flickering in her eyes. She nodded and followed him, leaning on him whenever the uneven path became too difficult. James realized that despite her exhaustion, there was a quiet determination in her movements, a courage that allowed her to keep going even when every part of her body wanted to collapse. As they walked, James tried to make her feel comfortable. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Leela," she replied. "Leela Amari." "That's a beautiful name," he said with a smile. "I'm James. "You've been walking a long time, haven't you?" "Yes," she admitted, her voice trembling. I I was trying to get home, but then everything went wrong. I don't know if I can make it." Her words broke off, and she looked away, embarrassed. James didn't press her. He knew that sometimes words were too heavy for someone carrying fear and pain. Instead, he focused on getting her to the clearing where he had set up camp. The path opened into a small area where a few trees formed a natural shelter from the wind. He had already gathered some firewood and had a small tent set up, enough for both of them to stay out of the cold night. "Here we are," James said kindly. "You can rest now. I'll start a fire, and you can sit by it." Lila sank to the ground, relief washing over her features. She pulled her knees to her chest and rested her head against them. Too tired even to respond, James knelt beside her, setting the firewood carefully before striking a match. Flames flickered to life, casting warm light across the clearing and making the shadows of the trees dance on the ground. Lila watched the fire silently, mesmerized by the warmth and movement, and James could see the tension slowly leaving her body. "Would you like some water?" he asked, retrieving a small canteen from his bag. Lila nodded, and he handed it to her. She drank carefully, taking small sips, and he waited patiently until she was finished. "You're very brave, Lila," he said softly. "I know it hasn't been easy for you to keep going." She looked up at him then, her eyes glistening. I had to try," she whispered. "There's no one else. I had to do something." Her voice broke, and James felt a pang of sorrow for her. He sat beside her, giving her space but offering quiet companionship. "You don't have to do anything tonight," he said. "You're safe here. Just rest." The forest around them grew darker, the sounds of the night slowly filling the air. Crickets chirped, owls called softly, and somewhere in the distance a river whispered over rocks. Lila's eyelids grew heavy, and she curled up beside the fire, exhausted beyond words. James watched her for a moment, then turned his attention to preparing a simple meal. He had brought dried food and water, and he made a small stew over the flames. The aroma seemed to bring a small smile to Lila's face, though she didn't have the strength to say much. As the night deepened, James realized how unusual this encounter was. He had traveled for weeks, met many people, but never had anyone so young and vulnerable rely on him so completely. He felt a protective instinct rise within him, a sense of responsibility he could not ignore. Yet there was also curiosity. Who was this girl? What had forced her to walk through the forest alone? He decided he would learn her story, but he would wait until she felt safe enough to share it. Hours passed, and the fire dwindled to glowing embers. Lila slept, her breathing even and calm, and James sat quietly, reflecting on the strange twists of fate that had brought them together. He had intended this to be a solitary journey, a chance to observe and document from a distance. Instead, he had been drawn into someone else's life, even if only for a night. In that quiet forest clearing under a sky filled with stars, James felt a connection not just to Lila, but to the world around him, the trees, the animals, the river, and the sky. It was a reminder of the fragility and strength of life, and of the unexpected ways humans could touch each other's lives. By the time the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, James had decided that this encounter, brief as it might be, would stay with him forever. Lila's presence, her courage, and her trust had changed him in ways he did not yet fully understand. And he knew that tomorrow, when the journey continued, the story of this night would remain with him, a quiet testament to the kindness and resilience of a young girl who simply needed to rest for one night. Morning light filtered softly through the trees, casting a golden glow across the small clearing. The fire from the night before had burned down to ashes, but the warmth lingered in the air. Lila stirred, her small body stretching as she blinked against the sunlight. She sat up slowly, wincing as her muscles protested the long hours of walking and sleeping on the hard ground. James, who had been quietly preparing a simple breakfast of bread, fruits, and water, noticed her movement and smiled gently. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep okay?" Lila nodded, though her face was still tired. "A little, thank you," she replied softly. Her voice carried a mixture of relief and lingering worry. She looked around at the clearing, the trees, and the small fire pit, realizing she was safe. For now. James handed her a small piece of bread and a cup of water. "You need your strength if you're going to keep moving," he said. "Even if just for today, it's important to take care of yourself." Lila accepted the food, eating slowly. She was clearly still weak, but her eyes held a quiet determination. After a few moments she finally spoke, her voice hesitant at first. I should tell you why I was walking alone," she said. "I didn't mean to worry anyone." James nodded encouragingly. "It's okay. You can tell me. I want to understand, and I promise you, I won't judge." She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I come from a small village deep in the mountains," she began. "It's far from here, and life there, it's simple, but not always easy. We live from the land, from what we can grow or hunt. My family, they rely on me more than I thought I ever would." Her eyes dropped to the ground as she continued, the words spilling out slowly. "Last week, a storm destroyed part of our village. The river overflowed, and the fields were ruined. Many people had to leave their homes. My parents asked me to go to a neighboring village for help. I was supposed to take a message and bring back supplies. But I got lost. I tried to find my way back, but the paths were gone, the forest. It felt endless." James listened in silence, carefully watching her face for signs of fear or pain. He could see the courage it had taken for her to make this journey alone. The thought of a child walking for days, carrying not just a message, but the hope of her family, filled him with both admiration and concern. "Why didn't anyone go with you?" he asked, gently. They were busy helping the village," she said softly. "I didn't want to wait. I thought I could do it. I thought I could be strong enough." Her voice quivered, and she looked down again. "But I wasn't. That's why I kept walking, even when I couldn't." James felt a lump in his throat. He could imagine her tiny feet pressing into the cold, hard earth, her small body aching from exhaustion, yet pushing forward because she felt responsible for everyone she loved. He had seen brave people before, but something about her courage, so quiet, so determined, was different. "You've done something very brave, Lila," James said softly. "Most people, even adults, wouldn't have had the strength to keep going alone like you did. You should be proud of yourself." Lila's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. She simply looked at him, absorbing his words, feeling for the first time that maybe someone understood. They ate their breakfast in silence, the forest around them slowly coming alive. Birds chirped in the distance, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and the sunlight grew warmer. James decided to give her a bit of time to rest before asking more questions. He knew that rushing her story could scare her, and he wanted her to feel safe. After a while, Lila spoke again, her voice quieter but steadier. "When I left my village, I didn't think it would be like this. I thought I would find the path easily, and I would bring help back. But everything changed. The forest, B. It's bigger than I imagined, and sometimes it felt like it was against me. James nodded, understanding. The forest can be very difficult. But it's also beautiful, isn't it? It gives life, it shelters, and it teaches us things. I think you've learned a lot already, even if it's been hard. Lila smiled faintly, a small flicker of hope breaking through her exhaustion. She looked at the trees, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, and for a moment she felt a connection to the world around her. She realized that she wasn't completely alone anymore. Someone cared enough to listen, to help her, even when she had been afraid. James wanted to know more, but he also wanted her to feel comfortable. "Can you tell me about your village?" he asked gently. "What's it like there?" Lila's eyes lit up slightly, a spark of excitement replacing some of the fatigue. "It's quiet. The mountains surround us, and the river runs close by. We grow vegetables, catch fish, and take care of the animals. Everyone helps each other. Even if life is hard, it feels warm. My family, my friends, they are all part of it." Her voice grew softer, almost wistful. "I miss it, even though I just left." She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I didn't think I would get lost, and I didn't think I would be so scared. But I had to try. I had to keep moving." James reached out and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're strong, Lila. Stronger than you know. And the fact that you made it this far, it shows how brave you really are." For a moment, silence fell between them. The forest around them seemed to pause, as if listening to the small, quiet conversation. Lila felt a warmth in her chest, a small comfort that she hadn't felt in days. For the first time since she started her journey, she allowed herself to believe that she could survive this ordeal. As the day wore on, James decided it was time to help her regain some strength before she continued her journey. He offered to tend to her small injuries, cleaning the scrapes on her feet and hands with care. Lila winced at first, but then allowed him to help, trusting him more with each passing moment. While he worked, James asked gently, "Do you want to tell me about your family, your parents, your siblings?" Lila hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I have a little brother and a sister," she said softly. "They are young. My parents, they're always working. They wanted me to stay safe, but I couldn't. I had to try." James smiled softly. "You've done what you thought was best, and that's all anyone can ask for." After tending to her injuries, James offered to gather more water from a nearby stream and to prepare a small lunch. While he was away, Lila sat by the clearing, her eyes following the movement of the birds and the rustling leaves. She felt a strange mix of exhaustion, relief, and curiosity. She wanted to ask James questions about the world outside her village, about the places he had seen, and the people he had met. When he returned with fresh water and a simple meal, she eagerly accepted it. They ate together, and James told her a little about his travels, the places he had visited, and the people he had met. Lila listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. She had never left her village before, and the thought of the world beyond the mountains fascinated her. "You've seen so much," she said softly. "I didn't know there were so many different places." James nodded. "Yes, there are many places, but every place has its own challenges and beauty. And every journey teaches you something new." Lila thought about her journey, about the fear, the exhaustion, and the small moments of hope that had kept her moving. She realized that even though she had been afraid, she had learned a lot about herself. She had discovered strength she didn't know she had, and courage that had carried her through the darkest moments. As the sun climbed higher, James suggested they rest for a while before continuing. Lila agreed, grateful for the chance to gather energy. She lay down near the small fire, the warmth of the sun and the safety of the clearing easing her mind. James watched her for a moment, reflecting on the resilience of this young girl. He had met many people in his travels, but few had shown such quiet bravery. He knew that her story, her journey, would stay with him forever. And he realized that sometimes the most extraordinary courage comes from the smallest, most unexpected people. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the sounds of the forest, Lila began to feel something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she believed she could face it. And with James by her side, even for a little while, she felt a little less alone. The forest grew quieter as the day progressed, but the stillness was deceptive. Shadows stretched long across the ground as the sun began its slow descent, turning the sky into soft shades of gold and amber. James and Lila had rested through the midday heat, their small camp offering a rare moment of safety in a journey that had so far been exhausting and unpredictable. Once Lila felt strong enough, James suggested they continue for a short distance, staying within the forest but moving toward what he hoped would be a safer path leading out of the denser woods. She hesitated at first, worried her strength might fail again, but James encouraged her gently. "We'll go slowly," he said. "Every step you take is enough. You don't have to hurry." Lila nodded, gripping her stick tightly as they began walking. The ground was uneven, roots and rocks making every step uncertain. Her small feet were sore from the previous day's journey, and James kept an eye on her, ready to steady her if she stumbled. Each movement reminded Lila of how fragile her body felt, yet her determination kept her moving forward. As they walked, the forest seemed to shift around them. The soft rustle of leaves and chirping of birds gave way to a heavier silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. A slight wind stirred the branches above, carrying the faint scent of moss and wet earth. Lila clutched her stick tighter, feeling the forest closing in around her. The trees towered overhead, and for a moment she imagined herself lost among them again. James noticed her tension and slowed their pace. "It's okay to be afraid," he said softly. "The forest can feel overwhelming, but we're together. You're not alone." Lila nodded, drawing comfort from his words. I was scared yesterday too," she admitted quietly. "I thought I would never make it, and that no one would help me." "You made it this far," James said. "And now you have a safe place to rest tonight. That counts for a lot." Despite his reassurance, the forest proved to be more challenging than either of them expected. A sudden drop in the trail forced them to carefully navigate a steep incline, and Lila's weak legs wobbled dangerously. James moved beside her, steadying her with a firm hand. "Take it slow," he instructed. "One step at a time. That's all we need." For a while, the journey was uneventful, but as the afternoon wore on, dark clouds began to gather above the treetops. A low rumble of thunder echoed through the forest, and the first drops of rain fell cold and heavy against their skin. Lila's fear returned instantly. She shivered and hugged herself, worried about how they would make it through a storm in the middle of the woods. James acted quickly. "We need to find shelter," he said, scanning the trees. Not far ahead, he spotted a natural overhang formed by rocks and tree roots. It wasn't much, but it would keep them dry. He helped Lila navigate the slippery ground until they reached it. She collapsed under the shelter, exhausted and trembling. I don't know if I can keep going," she admitted, her voice barely audible over the sound of rain. James knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to go anywhere right now. We're safe here. Let the storm pass, and then we'll decide what to do next. You're stronger than you think." The rain fell steadily, drumming on the leaves above them and creating a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the fear Lila had felt. As they waited, James pulled a small blanket from his pack and wrapped it around her shoulders. She shivered less, comforted by the warmth and the sense that she wasn't alone. While the storm raged outside, James decided to lighten the mood and distract her from her fear. He began telling stories from his travels, describing distant mountains, wide rivers, and villages full of laughter and music. Leela listened intently, her eyes brightening as she imagined places far beyond the forest she knew. For a moment, the fear that had gripped her so tightly loosened its hold, replaced by curiosity and wonder. "Do you really think I could see those places someday?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with awe. James smiled. "If you keep your courage and curiosity alive, I don't see why not. The world is bigger than we can imagine, but it's full of opportunities to learn and grow." Lila nodded, letting his words sink in. She had never imagined a life beyond her village, and the idea both excited and frightened her. But for the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of hope that her journey might have a purpose beyond just survival. As the storm began to subside, the forest transformed. Rain-soaked leaves glistened in the dim light, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Tiny streams of water trickled along the forest floor, reflecting the colors of the sky. Leela stood slowly, testing her legs, and James helped her adjust her blanket. Together they continued along the path, careful not to slip on the wet ground. Even with the storm behind them, the forest continued to challenge them. Fallen branches blocked their way, and the trail became muddier with each step. Lila struggled, but she refused to give up. Each time she stumbled, James was there to support her, and each time her confidence grew a little. Along the path, they encountered a small clearing filled with wildflowers. Lila paused, kneeling to touch the soft petals and inhale the sweet scent. For a brief moment, she forgot about her exhaustion, her journey, and her fear. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in days. "See?" James said gently, noticing her smile. "Even in the hardest places, there's beauty to be found. That's part of what makes this journey worthwhile." Lila nodded, her fingers brushing the flowers. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I didn't think I would see anything like this today." Their respite was short-lived, however. As they resumed their walk, they heard the faint rustle of movement nearby. At first, they thought it was the wind, but then came the sharp snap of a branch. Lila froze, fear returning to her eyes. James moved closer to her, scanning the area. "It's okay," he whispered. "Let's stay calm and see what it is." Out of the underbrush emerged a small group of deer, startled by the rain and looking for shelter. Lila exhaled in relief, a laugh escaping her lips. "Just deer," she said, shaking her head at how frightened she had been. James smiled. "Even the smallest challenges can feel big when you're tired or scared. But look at you, you handled it." As they continued, the path began to slope upward, leading them to a ridge with a view of the valley below. The sight took Lila's breath away. The sun, now breaking through the clouds, cast golden light over the treetops and river winding through the valley. For a moment, she forgot about the pain in her legs, the blisters on her feet, and the exhaustion that weighed her down. "Look," James said softly. "You made it this far? Isn't it amazing?" Lila nodded, tears forming in her eyes, not of sadness, but of awe and gratitude. "It's beautiful," she whispered. I never imagined the world could be like this. James put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. There's so much more out there, Lila, and you'll see it if you keep moving, one step at a time. The ridge marked a turning point in their journey. From here, the path would be less treacherous, and the valley offered a safer route toward civilization. Lila felt a renewed sense of determination, knowing that the hardest part of her journey might be behind her. As they set up a small camp for the night, Lila reflected on everything she had endured so far, the fear, the pain, and the exhaustion. But she also thought about the moments of kindness, the beauty of the forest, and the courage she had discovered within herself. She realized that her journey was teaching her more than she had ever imagined, and that strength often came from the most unexpected places. James sat nearby, tending the fire and preparing a simple meal. He watched Lila as she carefully cleaned her feet and inspected her stick for any damage. He could see the determination in her eyes, and he felt a deep respect for her resilience. You've grown a lot today, he said quietly. Not just in strength, but in courage. You faced the storm, the forest, and your fears, and you didn't give up. Lila looked up, a small smile playing on her lips. I couldn't have done it without you, she admitted softly. You helped me when I didn't think I could go on. James shook his head gently. You helped yourself. I just walked beside you. The strength was always inside you, Lila. You just had to believe it. As night fell once again, the fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows across the clearing. Lila curled up near the warmth, feeling safe and protected. She closed her eyes, letting the events of the day wash over her, the fear, the beauty, and the small victories. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of peace. She knew the journey ahead would still be difficult, but she also knew she had the courage to face it. And with James by her side, even for a little while, she felt that anything might be possible. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the trees, painting the forest floor in shades of gold and green. The air was crisp and fresh after the night's rain, carrying the soft scent of wet leaves and flowers. Lila stirred, slowly opening her eyes, feeling the warmth of the fire's embers on her face. The night had been quiet, and for the first time in days, she had slept without fear. James was already awake, tending to the small fire and preparing breakfast. The smell of warm bread and boiled water filled the clearing, mixing with the earthy scent of the forest. Lila sat up, stretching her stiff legs and smiling at the comforting aroma. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," James replied, smiling warmly. "Did you sleep well?" Lila nodded. "Yes, better than I thought I would. Thank you." James handed her a small piece of bread and a cup of water. "You need your strength," he said gently. "There's still a long journey ahead, and today we might learn more about where you need to go." As they ate, Lila hesitated before speaking. "James, I should tell you, there's something important about my village. Something I didn't tell you last night." James looked at her with quiet encouragement. "It's okay, Lila. Take your time. You can tell me whenever you're ready." She took a deep breath and began slowly. "When I left my village, I was carrying a message from my parents. It wasn't just about food or supplies. It was about a warning. The storm was stronger than anyone expected, and it damaged our homes and fields. Some of the riverbanks are weak now, and if it rains again, parts of the village could be in danger." James listened carefully, his mind already forming a picture of the situation. He could see the worry in her eyes, the weight of responsibility she carried despite being so young. "There's more," Lila continued, her voice trembling. "Some of the villagers had to leave for safety. My parents asked me to go to the neighboring village to get help. I was supposed to bring back supplies, food, blankets, medicine, anything that could help my family and neighbors survive. But I got lost and I didn't know how far I was from home. I was scared I wouldn't make it back in time. James felt a surge of admiration for the girl. Even after facing exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty, she had continued her journey because she cared about others. The courage it must have taken to walk alone through the forest, carrying the responsibility of her entire village, was remarkable. "You've been incredibly brave, Lila," James said softly. "Even adults might have given up in a situation like that. You kept going because you cared, and that's something very rare." Lila looked down, embarrassed but grateful for the praise. I just didn't want anyone to get hurt," she whispered. "I thought I could do it, but I was wrong. I needed help. And then I found you." James smiled gently. "You didn't fail. You made it this far, and now you have the chance to complete your mission. You're learning what it means to be strong, and you're not alone anymore. I'm here, and we'll get through this together." After breakfast, they packed their small belongings and began walking again. The forest, washed clean by the rain, seemed brighter, almost welcoming. Birds sang softly, and small animals peeked from the underbrush. Lila's steps were more confident now, strengthened by the rest and the warmth of the morning sun. As they walked, James asked gently, "Can you tell me more about your village? I want to understand where you come from." Lila's eyes brightened. "It's small, but it's our home. The houses are made of wood and clay, with thatched roofs. We grow vegetables in the fields, catch fish in the river, and take care of animals like goats and chickens. Everyone in the village helps each other. Even if life is hard, it feels safe and full of love." Her voice softened, almost wistful. "I miss it already, even though I just left." James nodded. "Home is always like that. We carry it with us even when we're far away. And right now, your home needs you. That's why your journey matters." As the day progressed, they came across a narrow stream flowing over smooth rocks. Lila paused, fascinated by the water. "It's so clear," she said, kneeling to touch it. "I've never seen water like this before, not flowing so fast and clean." James smiled. "The forest has a way of showing its beauty when you take the time to notice. Even during difficult times, there's always something to appreciate." Lila watched the water for a long moment, letting its movement calm her mind. She realized that her journey, though dangerous and exhausting, had taught her to notice the small details of the world around her. The rustling of leaves, the sound of birds, the feeling of cool water on her hands. It was a reminder that even in hardship, there was beauty to be found. But the journey was far from easy. As they continued along the path, the forest began to narrow, the trees growing taller and the underbrush thicker. The trail became slippery, covered with fallen leaves and mud from the recent rain. Lila struggled, slipping several times, but James was always nearby to steady her. "You're doing very well," he encouraged. "Every step you take is progress. Don't worry about the rest." Lila nodded, grateful for his support. I don't want to let my village down," she said softly. "I have to keep going." James smiled gently. "You won't. You've already done so much. Just remember to take care of yourself too." As they approached a small hill, Lila paused to catch her breath. James noticed her hesitation and suggested they rest for a moment. "Look at that view," he said, pointing to the valley below. "You can see how far you've come. You're closer to your goal than you realize." Lila looked down at the valley, the river winding through the fields and the forest stretching toward the horizon. For a moment, she felt a surge of hope and determination. She realized that she had survived the forest, the storm, and the fear within herself. Now she had the chance to complete her mission and help her village. After a short rest, they continued down the hill, following a narrow path that led toward the valley. The terrain became easier, and Lila's steps grew steadier. Along the way, James and Lila talked about her village, her family, and the people she loved. She described the simple joys of village life, the laughter of children playing in the fields, the smell of fresh bread baking in the morning, and the warmth of her mother's embrace. James listened with interest, asking questions and encouraging her to share her memories. Lila found comfort in speaking about her home, and it gave her renewed strength for the journey ahead. She realized that even though she had been lost and scared, her love for her village had carried her through the hardest moments. By mid-afternoon, they reached the edge of the forest and saw the open fields leading toward the neighboring village. Lila's eyes widened in relief and excitement. "We're almost there," she whispered. James nodded. "Yes, we are. You've done incredibly well, Lila. Just a little further, and you'll be able to get the help your village needs." Lila felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had faced fear, pain, and uncertainty, but she had also discovered courage, resilience, and hope. She realized that her journey was not just about delivering a message. It was about learning who she was and what she was capable of. As they prepared to leave the forest and step into the open fields, James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No matter what happens next, remember that you've already proven yourself. You're strong, brave, and capable of great things." Lila smiled, feeling a sense of pride and determination she had never felt before. She knew that the journey ahead might still have challenges, but she was ready to face them. With James by her side, even for a little while, she felt confident that she could succeed. Together, they stepped out of the forest, the sunlight warming their faces and the valley stretching out before them. For Lila, the sight of the open fields was more than just a physical milestone. It was a symbol of hope, progress, and the promise of helping her village. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze on her face and the warmth of the sun on her back. She realized that every step she had taken, every obstacle she had faced, had led her to this moment, and she knew that no matter what challenges remained, she had the strength to continue. James walked beside her, silently proud of the young girl who had come so far. He had witnessed her courage, determination, and resilience, and he knew that she would carry these qualities with her for the rest of her life. As they moved forward together, the forest behind them and the valley ahead, Lila felt a quiet determination settle in her heart. She would deliver the message, help her village, and return home stronger than she had ever imagined. And in that moment, she knew that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the decision to keep moving forward, even when the path seemed impossible. The sun had climbed high in the sky, warming the valley and turning the fields into a patchwork of golden greens. Lila walked beside James, her steps lighter now, her spirit stronger. The forest behind them felt like a distant memory, and the open path ahead symbolized hope and the promise of completing her mission. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose. The neighboring village was still a few miles away, but it was visible now, a small cluster of houses surrounded by fields and bordered by a slow-flowing river. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the faint sound of children playing could be heard in the distance. Lila's heart quickened with a mixture of relief, excitement, and nervous anticipation. She had almost reached her goal. James noticed the change in her demeanor. "You're doing really well," he said softly. "You've come so far, Lila. Just a little further, and your village will have the help it needs." Lila nodded, swallowing hard. I hope they'll listen. I hope they understand." Her voice wavered, revealing the anxiety she had carried for so long. "If they don't, if they ignore the warning, my village, my family, I don't know what would happen." James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They will listen. You've done everything you can to reach them, and that matters more than anything. You've shown courage, determination, and responsibility. That counts for a lot." As they moved closer, the villagers began to notice them. A few adults came out of their houses, curious about the travelers approaching. Lila's small frame and tired appearance drew immediate concern. She slowed her steps, unsure how to explain her purpose to strangers, but James encouraged her with a gentle smile. One of the villagers, an older man with kind eyes, approached. "Hello there," he said warmly. "Are you all right, young one? You look tired." Lila took a deep breath and gathered her courage. "I, I'm Lila," she said. "I come from a village beyond the forest. There was a storm. It damaged our homes and fields. Some people had to leave for safety. My parents asked me to come here and get help, to bring back supplies, food, blankets, medicine, anything that could help us survive." The villagers exchanged worried glances, listening intently as she spoke. Lila's voice grew steadier as she explained everything: the storm, the damage to the riverbanks, the risks to her village, and her journey through the forest. She described her exhaustion, fear, and the determination that had kept her moving. The older man placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done something very brave, Lila," he said. "Not many would have undertaken such a journey at your age. We will help your village, and we will do everything we can to provide what you need." Lila felt a wave of relief and gratitude. Tears pricked her eyes as she realized her mission was not in vain. Her efforts, her courage, and her perseverance had led to hope for her family and neighbors. She smiled at James, who nodded proudly, understanding the depth of what had just occurred. After speaking with the villagers, arrangements were made for supplies to be prepared for the journey back to her village. Lila watched as baskets of food, blankets, and basic medicine were gathered. She felt a sense of accomplishment and responsibility, knowing that the people who had once been strangers were now allies in her mission. While the villagers worked, James and Lila found a quiet spot near the river. They sat together, letting the warm sunlight and gentle sounds of nature soothe their tired minds. Lila spoke softly, reflecting on the journey she had undertaken. "I never thought I would make it," she admitted. "I was scared, so scared. But I kept going. I had to." James nodded, listening attentively. "Fear is natural, Lila. What matters is that you didn't let it stop you. You faced it, and you kept moving forward. That's what courage really is. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." Lila smiled faintly, feeling the truth of his words. She thought about the forest, the storm, and the moments when she had nearly given up. She realized that each challenge had taught her something valuable about herself, her strength, and the world around her. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the supplies were ready. Lila prepared to leave with a small group of villagers who would help her carry the baskets back to her village. She turned to James, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. I couldn't have done this without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." James shook his head gently. "You did all the hard work, Lila. I just walked beside you. The strength was always inside you." Lila hugged him quickly, a gesture of genuine gratitude and connection. It was a brief moment, but it carried the weight of their shared journey. The fear, the challenges, the courage, and the growth they had both experienced. As the group began moving toward her village, Lila felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The forest, the storms, and the hardships of the journey were behind her now. Ahead lay her home, her family, and the chance to bring relief to those she loved. The villagers who accompanied her were kind and encouraging, sharing stories of their own lives and offering support along the way. Lila found comfort in their company, realizing that she no longer had to face the world alone. Her journey had shown her that while courage and determination were important, so too was the kindness of others. As they approached the outskirts of her village, Lila's heart raced. She could see smoke rising from the chimneys and hear the distant sounds of people moving about. Her family would be waiting, worried but hopeful, and she felt a deep sense of responsibility and love. When she finally entered the village, she was greeted by familiar faces, friends, neighbors, and family members who had been anxiously awaiting her return. Her parents rushed to her side, embracing her tightly, tears streaming down their faces. "My brave girl," her mother whispered, holding her close. "You've done so much. We were worried, but now we are so proud of you." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with pride. "You've shown courage beyond your years, Lila. You've brought hope to our village, and we are grateful for your bravery." Lila smiled through her tears, feeling a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. She realized that her journey had not only brought help to her village, but had also taught her valuable lessons about courage, responsibility, and the strength of the human spirit. The villagers quickly organized the supplies that had been brought, distributing food, blankets, and medicine to those in need. Lila helped where she could, her small hands steady despite her exhaustion. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that her efforts had made a tangible difference in the lives of her friends and family. As the day turned to evening, the village gathered around a small fire, celebrating the successful return of the young messenger and the arrival of the much-needed supplies. Lila sat quietly, observing the joy and relief on the faces around her. She felt a warm sense of connection to her community, realizing that her journey had strengthened not only her own courage, but also the bonds between her village and the neighboring one. James, who had accompanied her for part of the journey, watched from a distance, smiling quietly. He had witnessed Lila's transformation, the way she had faced fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, yet never given up. He knew that the lessons she had learned would stay with her for the rest of her life, shaping her into a person of strength, compassion, and resilience. As the fire crackled and the stars began to appear in the night sky, Lila reflected on her journey. She thought about the forest, the storms, the challenges, and the kindness of strangers like James. She realized that even in the darkest moments, there was always a path forward, and that courage, determination, and hope could overcome fear and uncertainty. Her parents sat beside her, holding her hands, and she felt a deep sense of love and gratitude. "I've learned so much," she said softly. "I've learned that even when things seem impossible, we can find the strength to keep going. And I've learned that kindness and help from others can make all the difference." Her mother nodded, smiling. "Yes, my child, you've shown us all what courage truly means, and you've reminded us that even in difficult times, hope and determination can light the way." As the village settled for the night, Lila felt a quiet peace. Her journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought her growth, understanding, and the knowledge that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. She had faced fear, danger, and exhaustion, yet she had never given up. James stayed for a short while longer, helping ensure that everything was in order before he prepared to continue his own journey. Lila hugged him once more, a silent promise of gratitude and friendship. "You've changed my life," she said softly. "And you've changed mine," James replied. "I'll never forget your courage, Lila." As he left the village, Lila watched him disappear along the path, feeling a sense of gratitude and hope. She knew that her journey was far from over. Life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength, courage, and determination to face them. That night, as she lay in her bed at home, surrounded by her family and the warmth of her village, Lila reflected on everything she had experienced. She realized that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. She had carried her village's hope on her shoulders, and she had succeeded. And in that moment, she understood something profound. The journey had changed her, shaped her, and made her stronger. It had shown her the power of kindness, the importance of determination, and the beauty of hope. Lila closed her eyes, feeling the quiet strength within her, ready to face whatever the future might hold. She had survived the forest, the storm, and her fears, and she had returned home not just as a messenger, but as a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope for everyone she loved.